What focus mode is going to get you the best pictures possible with the gear you have? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about pretty much the 4 different focus modes that will be on your camera and which one will work best in each situation. And towards the end of this video, I'm going to talk about what focus modes I use in what situations. So first of all, who am I? My name is Mike Patterson. I'm located here in Western Canada. I've been a full-time photographer for over 39 years. Make my living exclusively from photography. And I share in my videos how I get the best images possible with the gear that I have. So let's talk about focus modes. First, manual focus. Now, manual focus isn't so much on the camera. On some it is. But manual focus is actually that little button on the side of your lens that you can switch from autofocus to manual focus. So what does it do? Well, when you switch to manual focus, your lens is now focused manually by you. You go in and you focus it so that it's in focus. This works great for many situations. You can do so much with it. It's a wonderful mode, but it has some drawbacks. So when do I use manual focus? Well, first time, the biggest time that I use manual focus is when I'm doing astrophotography or when I'm doing storm chasing. Because I know that everything I shoot in those 2 situations will be at infinity. So my lens, if I set it to infinity, I know that my subject, which is the lightning, which is the stars, is going to be in focus. I also use it when I'm shooting a lot of my scenic stuff because I don't need it to focus all the time. If I'm photographing a mountain that's 10 miles away, it doesn't have to focus every single time. So I can set my camera on a tripod, set it to infinity, and go and take my pictures. And it doesn't have to focus all the time. It gives me a bit more control. It has my camera do less. It works great for that. The other times that I use it, well, let's say I have a bird that's flying in and out of a nest, a hole in a tree. And I know that that bird's going to pass that point multiple times. Well, I don't need my camera to try to focus every time because that bird's not going to sit there and pose and wait for me. So if I focus on that hole in the tree that the bird's going to pass repeatedly and my camera's on a tripod, then I can focus on that. And then whenever the bird flies by, all I have to do is hit the shutter button. And it works great for that. It's not hunting. It's not trying to find. It's all ready to go. And it works wonderful for that. Another situation. Let's say you have a kid on a swing. The kid's going back and forth on the swing. Well, if you focus on a certain spot when that swing passes it, because you know it's going to pass it at least twice, and every time the kid goes, it's going to pass it twice, and you focus on that spot, when the kid comes down, you can push your shutter button and start taking pictures. When the kid goes past it again, going the other way, you can do the same thing. And you know the kid's going to be in focus at that point. So it works great for stuff like that. Sports cars, same thing. If they're going around a track, you know at a certain point, every time they go past you, that they're going to be at that point. So you can focus on that point ahead of time. Then when they come past it, all you have to do is hit the shutter button and go and you got your pictures. It doesn't have to focus every time. So that's where manual focus shines. But there's a problem with manual focus, and it's a big one, and it's the following. In our older cameras, before autofocus came out, we had what was called a split prism viewfinder. And it was pretty much this. If you were focusing on something, let's say a tree, if the tree didn't line up absolutely perfectly, you knew it wasn't in focus. If you had it lined up so that it was perfect, you knew it was in focus. That's how the viewfinders worked. Well, they got rid of those viewfinders, so it's harder to do that. Now, a side note, in that most cameras with the autofocus system, even if the lens is set to manual focus, it will still either beep or that sensor, that spot, that focus point will turn green when you focus on it. So yes, it still does work, but it's just not quite as good. The other thing that they got rid of in most lenses is they got rid of the distance scale, which worked great for manual focus. As an example, if I'm shooting a subject, I know the subject's 5 feet away. I can turn my lens so it's at 5 feet, and then if I take my picture, it's in focus because it's set to 5 feet away. So I know that it's in focus. But they got rid of that focus scale, that distance scale. So now it's harder to use manual focus, but it still works. It can still be used in many situations. All right, the next mode. The next mode is how most cameras come already set up. and that's called one shot. You push the shutter button down, it focuses, it takes the exposure, and it's all ready to take the picture. All you have to do is push the rest of the way, and it takes a picture. This works great in so many situations. That's why cameras come preset to it, because it works so well in so many situations. But there are areas that it doesn't work near as well as it should. But the one shot, it works great. Bride coming down the aisle. Bride's walking down the aisle. You push your button down, it focuses, you take the picture, and you've got a beautiful picture. But what happens if you want to recompose that? What happens if your focus point, that spot, is right in the middle and you want the bride off to the side a little bit? Well, if you focus on the bride and you take that little bit of time to recompose, the bride, if she's still moving, is now out of focus. So one shot doesn't work if you or the subject is moving. It can be a real problem. If the subject is still, it works great. You can focus, you can recompose a little bit, and then you can take the picture. So it does work really well. Now, word of warning with one shot. Other than you moving and the subject moving, there's one other problem with it. And that is, a lot of people will tell you in one shot that you can focus on your subject and then you can move your lens around. It works great if you're an equal distance from your subject, if you're lined up perfectly with the subject. But if you're a little bit off, if you're a little bit on an angle, what happens is that you get that focus, and then when you recompose, all of a sudden your subject's now further away because you've changed the angle that you're shooting, and it can be that you're getting more out of focus pictures by doing that. So how can you, stop this from happening? It's easy. Move your focus point on your camera so that it's on the side where you want it to be. Then when you take the focus, you don't need to do a lot of recomposing. You just take the picture and you're done. So one shot works great. All right, the next mode. The next mode. AI focus. It's horrible. What's AI focus? Well, AI focus is actually a combination of one shot and a combination of AI servo. It's one of these shots or one of these modes that people say, well, computers can do anything, so let's just let them make a decision. No, it works horrible. It uses one shot unless it doesn't need it, and then it changes it, but you never know when it's changing it. So stay away from AI focus. It's just bad, really bad. So what about AI servo? Well, AI servo is actually the mode that I use the most for my wildlife photography. I use it a little bit for people photography, not a lot, but my wildlife photography, it's so much better because I use it. And what is it? Well, it's as follows. When you focus on a subject, as long as you're holding your finger on the button halfway, it will continue to refocus should you or the subject move, which is amazing, which is fantastic because you know your subject's always going to be in focus. Perfect example. You're out and you're photographing an elk. The elk is walking towards you. You get the focus, you want to recompose a little bit, and then you want to take the picture, but you know your subjects keep moving. AI servo works beautifully. What happens if you're shooting a wedding? The bride's coming down the aisle. You focus on the bride, but you know what? It's not quite the right time to take the picture. It just doesn't look quite right. There's somebody that's leaning out. You want to wait till that person leans in. As long as you hold your finger down halfway on the shutter button, it will continue to track the bride as she moves towards you. Then when that person gets out of the way, you can finish taking the picture and it's perfect, beautiful. So it works wonderful, but not all the time. The biggest issue with AI servo is the following. It focuses on whatever that focus point is put on. So let's say the focus point is on the bride's face. Perfect, fabulous, fantastic. It'll track the bride all the way down the aisle so that whenever you take the picture, she'll be perfectly in focus. Unless, of course, she maybe steps sideways a little bit because there's somebody out in the aisle and she's trying to get around them. And then all of a sudden, your focus point focuses on the person standing 16 rows behind her. And when you go to take that next picture, you push the button the rest of the way, and it has now focused on the person that's way behind her. And you got an autofocus bride, and you got this blurry picture of somebody way in the background that, well, you didn't want to begin with. Or let's say you're photographing a bird. You're following the bird. The focus point's on the bird. It's tracking the bird amazingly. And then all of a sudden you move and the focus point jumps off the bird and picks up something else. It focuses on that. And then you get an out of focus picture of a bird. So it's not foolproof. It does have issues. It can be fooled. If you're following a subject and something's in front of it all of a sudden, let's say there's a tree and you're following a bird and the tree's all of a sudden in front of it and your camera jumps from the bird to the tree and then you hit the button all the way and you get a perfectly in focus picture of a tree and no bird, or the bird's blurry. So it can be fooled. It can cause issues. Again, the best way to do it is use a focus point that stays on your subject. Keep it on your subject. Make it a bigger focus point if you have to. Multiple focus points if you have to. That way, you'll get AI Servo to work perfectly. So what mode do I use? What do I find is the best? Well, I've already mentioned some of the situations. Manual focus, astrophotography, lightning photography. Manual focus, if I know my subject's coming back to a point repeatedly. Works perfect. Race cars, in sports a lot of times, a batter in the batter's box. They're getting ready to take the swing. Well, manual focus, I can focus on them and I don't have to refocus every time and I can just keep shooting away. It works beautiful for that. So I like manual focus for that. I use one shot an awful lot, and I mean an awful lot. If I'm going to recompose when I get back to the studio or if my subject's not moving. If I'm in the studio shooting headshots, if I'm out on location shooting, family pictures where the family's not moving and stuff, one shot works perfect, fabulous, fantastic. Because every time when I take a picture, it's going to refocus anyways, and I know that I'm going to get my perfect in focus subject and they're not moving and I'm not moving. So one shot works great in those situations. And finally, when do I use my AI Servo? Well, that's the big one I use an awful lot when I'm shooting my nature and wildlife. And it works great because it tracks any movement. Or if I'm moving, if I'm in the kayak and I'm taking pictures of something, even another kayaker, and we're moving in different directions, AI Servo is great because it will keep us in focus while I'm waiting for that perfect split second to take them as they're coming over a waterfall or if they're hitting some white water. It works perfect for that. But again, you have to be careful, like all modes, that your focus point stays on your subject. So those are the focus modes. Those are ways that you can use them, and those are how I use them. So get out there, take some amazing pictures, and make sure they're perfectly in focus by selecting the right focus mode. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye now.